Hello and welcome to Storytime with Outlaw. In this special video, I will read you a story. One of the best books in the Elder Scrolls franchise, 2920, last year of the First Era. Let's get started with Volume 1. MorningStar, Book 1 of 2920, the last year of the First Era, by Calorian Townway. 1 MorningStar 2920 Mournhold, Morrowind. Amalexia laid in her bed of fur, dreaming not until the sun burned through her window, infusing the light, wood, and flesh colors of her chamber in a milky glow. Did she open her eyes, it was quite an scene. A stunning reverse of the flavor of her dreams, so full of blood and celebration. For a few moments, she simply stared at the ceiling, trying to sort through her visions. In the courtyard of her palace was a boiling pool which steamed in the coldness of the winter morning. At the wave of her hand, it cleared, and she saw the face and form of her lover, Vivek. In his study to the north, she did not want to speak right away. He looked so handsome in his dark red robes, writing his poetry as he did every morning. Vivek, she said, and he raised his head in a smile, looking at her face across thousands of miles. I have seen a vision of the end of the war. After 80 years, I don't think anyone can imagine an end, said Vivek with a smile. He grew serious, trusting Amalexia's prophecies. Who will win, Morrowind or the Ceraderic Empire? Without Sotasil in Morrowind, we will lose, she replied. My intelligence tells me the Empire will strike us to the north in early springtide, by first seed at the latest. Could you go to Artaeum and convince him to return? I'll leave today, she said simply. 4 MorningStar 2920 Gideon, Blackmarsh. The Empress paced around her cell. Wintertide gave her wasteful energy, while in the summer she would merely sit by the window and be grateful for each breath of stale swamp wind that came to cool her. Across the room, her unfinished tapestry of a dance at the imperial court seemed to mock her. She ripped it from its frame, tearing the pieces apart as they drifted to the floor. She laughed at her own useless gesture of defiance. She would have plenty of time to repair it and craft 100 more. The Emperor had locked her up in the castle Gibbons 7 years ago, and would likely keep her here until he or she died. With a sigh, she pulled the card to call her knight. Lurk. He appeared at the door within minutes, full uniformed as befitting an imperial guard. Most of the native Kithringi tribesmen of Blackmars preferred to go around naked, but Zerk had taken a positive delight to fashion. His silver reflective skin was scantily visible only on his face, neck, and hands. Your Imperial Highness, he said with a bow. Zerk, said the Empress. On board. Let's discuss methods of assassinating my husband today. 14 MorningStar, 2920, the Imperial City, Cyrodiil. The chimes proclaimed South Wind's prayer echoed through the wide boulevards and gardens of the Imperial City, calling all to their temples. The Emperor Riemann III always attended a service at the Temple of the One, while his son and heir, Prince Jirik, found it more political to attend a service at a different temple of each religion's holiday. This year, it was the Cathedral Benevolence of Mara. The benevolence service were mercifully short, but it was not until afternoon the Emperor was able to return to the palace. By then, the arena combatants were impatiently waiting for the start of the ceremony. The crowd was less restless, as the potentate Visidusai had arranged for a demonstration of a troupe of Khajiit acrobats. Your religion is so much more convenient than mine, said the Emperor to his potentate, by the way of an apology. What is the first game? A one-on-one battle between two able warriors, said the potentate, his scaly skin catching the sun as he rose, arm befitting their culture. Sounds good, said the Emperor, and clapped his hands. Let the sports commence. As soon as he saw the two warriors enter the arena, the roar of the crowd, Emperor Riemann III remembered that he had agreed to this several months beforehand and forgotten about it. One combatant was the potentate's son, Severin Chortat, a glistening ivory yellow eel, gripping his katana and wabarashi with his thin, deceptively weak-looking arms. The other was the Emperor's son, Prince Jirak, in ebony armor with a savage orcish helm, shield, and longsword by his side. This will be fascinating to watch, hissed the potentate, a wide grin across his narrow face. I don't know if I've ever seen a Cyrodiilic fight a Akaviri like this. Usually it's army against army. At last, we can settle which philosophy is better. To create armor to combat swords, as your people do, or create swords to combat armor, as mine do. No one in the crowd, aside a scant few Akaviri counselors and the potentate himself, wanted Severin Chortat to win. But there was a collective intake of breath as the sight of his glistening movement. His sword seemed to be as part of him, a tail coming from his arms to match the one behind him. It was a trick of counterbalance, allowing the young serpent man to roll up into a circle and spin into the center of the ring in offensive position. The prince had to plod forward the less impressive traditional way. As they sprang at each other, the crowd bellowed with delight. The Akaviri was like a moon in orbit around the prince, effortlessly springing over his shoulder to attempt a blow from behind. But the prince whirled around quickly to block. With his shield, his counterstrike met only air as his foe fell flat to the ground. and slithered between his legs. Tripping him, the prince fell to the ground with a resounding crash. Metal and air melted together as Skyrim remained strike after strike upon the prince, who blocked everyone with his shield. "We don't have shields in our culture," muttered Visijusai. To the emperor, "It seems strange to my boy, I imagine. In our country, if you don't want to get hit, you move out of the way." When Syrian Chortat was rearing back to begin another series of blinding attacks, the prince kicked at his tail, sending him falling back momentarily. In an instant he had rebounded, but the prince was also back on his feet. The two circled one another until the snake man spun forward, katana extended. The prince saw his foe's plan and blocked the katana with his longsword and the wabarashi with his shield. In short, puncturing the blade, impaled itself in the metal, and Shuririn Chortat was thrown off balance. The prince's long blade slashed across the Akavidi's chest, and a sudden intense pain caused him to drop both of his weapons. In a moment, it was over. Severian Chort was prostrate in the dust, with the prince's longsword at his throat. "The game is over," shouted the emperor, barely heard over the applause of the stadium. The prince grinned and helped Severian up and ordered to a healer. The emperor clapped his potentate on the back, feeling relieved. He had not realized when the fight had begun how little chance he had given to his son at victory. "He will make a fine warrior," said Visijusai, "and a great emperor." "Just remember," laughed the emperor, "you Akaviri have a lot of showy moves, but if just one of our strikes comes through, it's all over for you." "Oh, I will remember that," nodded the potentate. Riemann thought about the comment for the rest of the games, and had trouble fully enjoying himself. Could the potentate be another enemy, just as the empress had turned out to be? The matter would bear watching. 21 MorningStar, 2920, Mournhold, Morrowind. "Why don't you ever wear that green gown I gave you?" asked the Duke of Mournhold, watching the young maiden put on her clothes. "It doesn't fit," smiled Tirola, "and you know I like red." "It doesn't fit you 'cause you're getting fat," laughed the Duke, pulling her down to the bed, kissing her breasts and the pouch of her stomach. She laughed at the tickles, but pulled herself up, wrapping the red robe around her. "I'm round like a woman should be," said Tirola. "Will I see you tomorrow?" "No," said the Duke. "I must entertain Vivek tomorrow, and the next day the Duke of Ebonheart is coming. Do you know I never really appreciated Amalexia and her political skills until she left." "It's the same with me," smiled Tirola. "You only appreciate me when I'm gone." "That's not true at all," snorted the Duke. "I appreciate you now." Tirola allowed the Duke one last kiss before she was out the door. She kept thinking about what he said. Would he appreciate her more or less when he knew that she was getting fat because she was carrying his child? Would he appreciate her more enough to marry her? The year continues in Sun's Dawn. And that was the book 2920, Volume 1. I will continue to read this book as the time comes. And that was MorningStar, 2920, last year of the first era. I hope you enjoyed story time with Outlaw. Look forward to the next volume. And as always, remember, someone out there appreciates you because I appreciate you. May Azora's glow guide you ever warmly. Good night, good day, good afternoon, and goodbye.